Art of Reentry, please welcome David Domenici, Executive Director at the Center for Educational Excellence in Alternative Settings. Stephen Belber, writer and producer of the film OG. Tara Libert, Executive Director of Free Minds Book Club. James Allen, Reentry and Outreach Assistant at Free Minds Book Club. And welcome back, The Atlantic's Adrienne Green.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
So, Tara, I want to start off with you. I want to talk about Free Minds. Can you tell everybody what that is?
Well, we're so happy to be here. We are a nonprofit in DC. We've been around for 16 years, and we use the tools of books, writing, and intentional fostering of a peer-supported community for youth incarcerated as adults and adults, both while in prison and then at home. We also do intensive wraparound reentry support. And as part of that, we call it a reentry book club. So we have a book club discussions, just like any book club you would think of, to help our members cope with the challenges of reentry.
What does that book club actually look like? What kind of things do you read? What is it like?
James probably can do that. He's the head of the book club.
The book club, basically, what we read, we like to bring about books that our members can relate to. And I don't know, did you mention that we work with incarcerated youth and people who are returning home? So we like to, just to break the ice and get them comfortable, we like to read like Jason Reynolds, The Long Way Down. A lot of people can relate to this book because a lot of people has witnessed death by homicide, you know, and that's basically how we get people to relate.
So we talk about, even if you can't read, we say our book club is a book club for anybody who wants to learn to read. It makes you want to, because many of the youth in the adult prisons have been disengaged from school, have been suspended from school, so their reading levels are not up to the par. So we pick books with characters they completely relate to, characters that go through the struggles that they've been through, that look like them, and then you can see yourself in the character. Some people call it bibliotherapy, and it's a way to distance yourself from the trauma and the pain that you're going through, but to find a way through it. And then we do creative writing exercises. So we say you've identified with the book and the author, and then you write the author of your own story, your own life. And then I have my little handy thing. We write our own book. We call it The Untold Story, The Real Me. And it's a way for the youth to see that we have a production, a concrete product, and to feel a different way about their incarceration and ultimately about their entire identity. It's a very powerful and effective way to change their own perception of themselves and what their future is.
James, how did you get started with Free Minds, and what does it mean? What has it meant to you to work with these people?
Free Minds, I heard about it while I was incarcerated. I got incarcerated when I was 18 years old to the age of 23, but I didn't start hearing about them until the end of my incarceration when I had months left, because I had a good friend of mine who was a member. And when he came home, he was offered a job with Free Minds, and he referred me to the program. So basically, I came to the program, I did my intake. I thought of it as a regular program. That's why when I went actually the initial intake, I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna see what it's about. But when I seen the genuine love and the care, and they asked me about, am I working, and asked me, do I have a resume? And I went to the apprenticeship classes that we had, and they was doing job readiness and interviewing skills and stuff. I was like, oh, okay, I like this. It's like a positive environment. It's a big group of people that been through a lot of things I've been through, and a big group of people who understand and empathetic of it. So once I realized it was like genuine love and care, and I said, oh, I could deal with this, you know? What got me with the program, what got me to like fall in love with it, if you will, is I get to go out to different schools and colleges and things like that and talk to endangered youth and people who never witnessed some of the things that people where I'm from witness. So I get to tell these young guys from my neighborhood, hey, I've been there, done that. Look at what I'm doing now. I'm a working man. I have no worries. I don't have to do this, look over my shoulder. And then I go out, and I just came from Princeton not too long ago, and I tell them my story, and they're amazed about it. So that's what I like about it.
When you're going to tell people your story, do they feel instantly connected? Is it something you gotta convince them about because they're kind of wary? What's that interaction like?
The kids or the young adults in the schools around like the different wards and quadrants of DC, being as though we're from the same area, they connect with me like almost instantly. As soon as I walk in and I introduce myself, tell them where I'm from and how I grew up. Sometimes they're shy, they don't have too many questions, but at the end, it never fails. It's about 3 or 4 of them that want to walk up to me like, hey, I'm going through some things too, man. You inspired, you motivated me to want to do better, you know, just because of what I'm going through. So for the others who don't know or have experience in my background, I wouldn't say they connect, but they like to try to understand. They have a lot of questions, and when I give them the answers, they like, oh, okay, see, I didn't know that. All I know is what TV feeds me in the media, I didn't know. Like I tell a lot of people, you wouldn't know I'm a felon unless I told you, because of the way I carry myself, and I'm an easygoing guy.
Absolutely. David, I want to bring you into the conversation. You also work with incarcerated youth. Tell us a little bit about your work.
At the center, we work primarily with juvenile justice agencies and their school district partners to try to improve schools inside of youth facilities all around the country. We also run a school in the youth detention center and in the adult jail in New Orleans. Related to this conference or this panel, the two things I think to emphasize, our schools in New Orleans are named the Travis Hill schools, and Travis Hill was a musician. He goes by the name of Trumpet Black, who was incarcerated for a significant period of time in New Orleans, got out and coined the phrase "trumpets, not guns," and wrote a song about that. Ultimately died at a tragically young age, not related to violence at all. But we try to bring a lot of art into the schools that we run, and we try to bring a lot of art and creativity and help bring out the art and creativity in students who are locked up all around the country. So down in New Orleans, we have a partnership with Preservation Hall and with Tulane University. We have kids taking music classes after school. We have kids we have a marching band, a small marching band, which is big in New Orleans. In schools all around the country, we promote poetry as a way of creative expression and sharing. We, every April during National Poetry Month, run a contest called Words Unlocked. We had 60-some youth facilities participate this year. We have over 1,000 kids submit poems just a couple days ago. And then we have poets from all around, we have volunteers from all around the country read the poems. We have Jimmy Santiago Baca, Dwayne Betts, other poets who are part of a panel, and we select a small number of kids as our finalists. We publish an anthology. We published a podcast of the students' poems the last couple of years. But one of our beliefs is that there's just a lot of really significant talent and creativity, unfortunately, locked up. And one of our goals is to kind of get that out and get those words out there, even if the young people aren't allowed to get out of their facilities. We want the power of their words to get out. We want it to be spread more broadly, and you want to find creative ways to start to relate with young people, and then you can build upon those assets and support them both while they're incarcerated and when they're released.
Is there a particular student or piece of art that they've created that really stuck with you?
Well, there's a lot, but a couple of years ago, so we have thousands of poems get submitted again every spring during this contest, but here's a really beautiful one that was one of the finalists a couple of years ago from a young kid in the Nancy B. Jefferson Alternative High School, which is the school inside of Cook County Juvenile Detention Center. It's called "The Meek and Humble Shall Inherit This Earth. In night-filled alleys where rats scurry over broken glass, you find her, the queen, strung out naked, blanketed only by stars, raped by life, scrubbed clean till bones show her limp body. Mother Earth comforts her, whispering sweet nothings that sound like something when you want them to, need them to. The police drive up on her with midnight stares. They look at her, that prevalent object just sprawling there. Nights in shadows match their stares. Young men, Rejected citizens elsewhere stand in her defense with 45s, knives, bottles, bricks, and souls as shields. Tonight, they lay their lives to rest, for these streets are our kingdom, 59th Street.
Snaps.
Move through the snaps.
Obviously, the work that your students are making is incredibly impactful for you personally, but also for them. What is the practice of being able to be in this expressive environment? And Tara, you can also answer this. What have you seen that do for them?
Well, again, you got to, particularly when you're, for young people who are locked up, so much about your life and your freedom and your just sense of humanity is taken away from you, particularly these young teens who are locked in adult facilities all over the country. These are very, very brutal, dehumanizing environments. And poetry and writing gives you a chance to be, it gives you a chance to find a sense of purpose and who you are, and you can express yourself. You have value. I don't mean to overstate this, but it's the truth. And by writing and expressing, again, it allows you as an individual to find a sense of self-worth again. And then particularly when that is acknowledged by your teacher, by your peers, by someone who reads your poem because it gets sent through Free Minds and you get a note back from a volunteer talking about how much it meant to be able to read your words. So it's an empowering process. I think inside of facilities it actually can be difficult because so much of life inside of a facility is disempowering and disenfranchising that there's a tension here about you get a chance to express yourself and have a sense of freedom, and then you're back to your cell, you're incarcerated. But I think this, a lot of young people talk about this when they leave, that tragically sometimes some of the best experience educationally they've had is in some of the places where we work with them and where they've had a chance to do things like participate in book clubs. And shouldn't have to go to jail and shouldn't have to have Free Minds come in to run a really great book club for you for you to develop a sense of like confidence in your ability to read and express. But hopefully that translates when you leave, you get out and you then believe I can go to school where I might have not been successful and where an institution I've also had mostly negative experiences with, but I have a chance, I'm going to go there. And we try to make connections at the schools. On the outside, again, you got to find assets. So you're trying to find schools where kids will be appreciated. And one way to help make that happen is to find a good English teacher who gets a chance to, who knows that this young person can read and express, and all of a sudden you go to school and instead of just walking around with a big red X on your back, you're a poet and you get to be in the open mic night and get to do some positive things. The next thing you know, you might actually feel like school is not a place where you're just gonna fail.
Do you think the people that run these institutions, both the educational institutions like schools and the carceral ones like juvenile facilities, do you think they understand the value? We all know that funding to these institutions for arts education has been dwindling for years, and it's an uphill battle to place these types of programs in all of these facilities. Do you feel like people understand the impact once they are present?
I think it varies. We work in youth facilities around the country, and it really varies. Utah, Los Angeles, you just never know. Some of these places, either the school districts that run the schools inside of the youth facilities or the juvenile justice agencies themselves. A lot of this is about leadership, and it's about just one person having a vision and saying, hey, I'm going to get this local artist to come in and do a workshop with these young people. It doesn't cost that much. And then, oh, we had a really great experience. Let's go try to find some whatever, Title I money. Oh, let's now develop a reading program. And hey, let's hire an art teacher, a part-time art teacher. So sometimes these things I think are kind of incremental. And the result again of one or two people just sort of saying, hey, let's not get stuck in this space of there's no funding, we can't do it. You need people in these facilities to say something different, which is to say, we can do it, how can we do it? In many of the places we work, the art is done by local nonprofits through partnerships at very low fees to the institution or the school. Local, like in New Orleans, we work with a lot of artists and art institutions in the city at virtually no meaningful cost to anybody to come in and introduce art and bring music to life inside of youth facilities.
Absolutely. Stephen, I want to pull you in. You have a very different experience with arts and incarceration. Your film, The OG, just premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival. Can you tell us about it for a second?
Yeah, this was a film that the idea was that we had permission to shoot in a maximum security prison in Indiana, and we wanted to tell that story in a feature way, not a documentary. But we knew that we sort of needed the help of inmates. We didn't want to fake it. So it began a process of going down and interviewing a lot of guys and trying to understand their stories and letting them participate in the creation, in a way, of the storytelling. And then I wrote a script, a fictional script based sort of on some of the stories, I guess, some of the interviews. And then we did shoot it in this particular prison, and it really went to the top of the state. Indiana allowed for this to happen. And we actually made a documentary at the same time where these guys were sort of given a doc class, a select group of inmates, and could interview each other and tell their stories of how they got there. And whereas the movie itself, the feature movie, is more about a guy about to get out and how he's preparing his last 6 weeks inside.
Let's show a clip of the film before we talk a little more.
Need more follow through. Only missed by like an inch. That's an inch too much. Follow through. See that? Key to perfect shot. See what I'm talking about? You feel that?
Same way I shot the first time.
Nah, you had more extension that time. Follow through. Do it. Do it again.
Yeah.
There you go.
We need one. Hey, man. I'll holler at you later, man.
Hey, let me breathe on you for a second. You know, normally I ain't one to preach. I mind my own fucking business. But running with them, no future in it. Especially with what's going on right now. When it pop off, you'll be the first to get it.
You just saying that shit because you don't like him.
Say I don't like it.
Terry, it's obvious, man. Used to be the man, right?
Hey, dignity, self-respect, grace. At the end of the day, that's what you want to try to hold on to in here. Might not mean much to you now, but it's something to remember.
Well, that's bomb, man.
So that was the actor Jeffrey Wright, who just won a Tribeca Award for the Best Actor in a U.S. Narrative Feature. Who was the other man?
So yeah, Jeffrey Wright was the older guy, and he's an actor, and he's really one of the few actors. And the other young guy is an inmate who auditioned for the role. His name is Theodis Carter, and we originally actually wrote it for a really younger guy, but for various reasons, some of the ability to audition was based on behavioral stuff, and he sort of came in late to the game and auditioned and sort of blew us all away, and we tweaked the part to make him a touch older and a little bit more, having been inside the system, a little bit more new to this prison, however. And it's really trying to understand this mentor relationship, and Theodis is amazing. He's just one of these, there's so much talent, as David said, there's just, it's everywhere, and waiting to be tapped, and he never had a chance to sort of exercise this talent that he has.
What inspired you to do this film and particularly use inmates that are actually in the prison in the production?
I think it was, again, knowing that I having not been incarcerated, and I didn't know how to write this particularly, so I needed not just their help through interviews, but once I wrote the script, I went with Jeffrey, and we in one day particularly, we read the script with 3 different sets of inmates, had a huge roundtable discussion with all these guys, then would do it with another set. And then once we cast Theodis, he and I went through every line, and he called me on every false note I hit and made me correct it. And so I knew that it was invaluable. And then also the idea of creating a partnership where we're not bringing in a busload of actors to do the parts that these guys could do. We wanted to give them a chance to enter a real collaboration with us, and it was mutually beneficial, without a doubt. And you could tell the thirst for participation and for self-expression is so deep, as you know, that it didn't take much to get this sort of level of enthusiasm that we needed.
What did you learn about prison, and particularly the experiences of the individual men that you worked with by just being around them in this prison?
Just so deeply rich and humane in what they have to offer. How many of them have such deep, deep intelligence, how they have leadership skills that oftentimes got them there to begin with, the mischanneled leadership skills that with slight diverging can be applied in mammoth ways. And it's sort of obvious that, oh, everyone's very human, but you get down there and you start having discussions. I'm going to take a group of writers from the Writers Guild in 2 weeks to do writing workshops for that very reason, because there was so much creative energy there that it was no-brainer.
What do you want people to take away from the film? What do you want them to feel when they walk out?
That the guy sitting next to you on the bus, I mean, that's what we're trying to do with Jeffrey's character, is he's about to get out, and as are 95% of inmates. And they are among us, and they are to be valued and treated as anything but different.
Absolutely. So before we open it up to questions, James, you've prepared a poem for us, and I want to give you the opportunity to read that before people ask questions.
So before he goes, I wanted to set it up a little bit. One thing you were saying, they have so much talent, but we find there's so much trauma that our members have before that led them to incarceration, the violence and the trauma, and that art is this really incredibly quick, fast way to connect and a way to process it. And so this young man that James is going to read his poem was, completely shut down until you have that vehicle of poetry, of art, of expression. It gives you a way to distance that real pain and trauma in our system. It's completely broken in terms of mental health treatment. And so we feel at least we can offer these tools of reading and writing and processing to have some real mental health treatment. And I just wanted to set that up before. We call him a poet ambassador. He's the voice of the 600 members who are still incarcerated.
All right, this poem is called Misunderstood by a member of Free Minds named Anthony. Understood, I'm misunderstood. Born an introvert, ambitious. Mama see it in my eyes. Granny know I'm gifted. Elementary school, junior high, high school, jail, prison. Institutionalized at a young age. Don't sag pants above the waist, Steve Irk. Rebel with the cause, purposeful. Rebellious to the laws, no statements, no father figure, love women. Never disrespect, I know they need understanding. Living with a bad case of PTSD, don't do drugs, no antidepressants. Inner fight going on. People call them demons because they don't understand it. I marvel at the way of the world. It's just hard to understand it. Best friend counting on me. I love her, she's the best. Can't forget the rest. Just family and a couple of close friends. Lost a lot of homies, seen a lot of messed up stuff. Too deep to find tears. Only 23, but I'm wise beyond my years. Stand-up guy, well respected among my peers. None less from opposition. Used to keep a gun on me, now I keep a big pen and an Oxford. There's more you probably wouldn't understand. Hurt doesn't always show. The worst almost always stays hidden, misunderstood.
We have a question in the back.
Sorry. Hi, so my name is Ayana. I'm a research assistant with Center for Police and Equity. Firstly, I want to just thank Free Minds for what you do. I actually volunteered with Free Minds my freshman year of college at Howard University, and you guys were actually the ones who introduced me into this world of what's going on with the criminal justice system and like what needs to be done. And I actually took a lot of the values that I learned volunteering with you guys to my internship at the Department of Corrections in New York City the following summer. So I just want to thank you for that. And yeah, that was my comment.
Yay. We have a comment in the center.
Hi, I'm Jamie Argento Rodriguez with the Public Defender Service in DC. David and Tara, hi. James, how are you? Stephen, I don't know you, but I hope I will at some point. I have a question, and I hope will be a little bit controversial for all of the panelists to perhaps answer, and maybe James starting with you, because I've had the pleasure to work with David and Tara, but the Federal Bureau of Prisons has just come out with this new policy about banning books from Amazon and other direct vendors. And obviously, that's going to have a huge impact on our clients and their ability to access books. at a cost that's more affordable, particularly when they're taking this money from their own canteens and for money that they've earned on a, cents to the dollar for the work that they do while they're imprisoned. So can I get your thoughts about this and what it could do for setting a standard for the nation's prisons, including state and local detention facilities, about keeping our folks away from literature?
I think it's a horrible idea to ban books coming from the outside, such as Amazon, and having people to pay for them out of their own canteen, because a lot of people, especially who have been incarcerated for a certain amount of time, don't have the outside support. And with prisons offering jobs to where they're working for pennies, 30 cents, 25, 50 cents an hour, it's like almost impossible to take care of yourself as far as hygiene, buying extra food, and then on top of that, buying $40 books. I think that'll have a big effect, especially from what we do. We like to send about 2 or 3 books per quarter, and people really enjoy that. We get a huge response. Like, letters just be flying in, very appreciative letters, and it's just like it's very unfortunate, because that's a big part of prison. It helps people cope with the time. It helps people survive the time a lot of times, to where, like Anthony said, people who are introverts and like to be within themselves, a book is a part of that. So I think that's a horrible idea. Free Minds as a book club, we have been talking about it and working on solutions, and hopefully the persistence of terror on top of us will make a change, but it's terrible right now.
Yeah, no, it's hard. I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding. The reason it is because of want contraband, the memo from the Bureau of Prisons, they want contraband and drugs coming in, which we don't want at all. No one wants that. No one wants that in a facility. But I think there's a misunderstanding. That's why I'm so happy this panel is happening. The power of the arts to have a safe and secure facility, and basically absolutely vital to any kind of rehabilitative program. And I think it stunned me, actually, to realize that the policy was so quickly without understanding the impact. So we actually have a lot of work to do to have the officials understand the impact. We're trying to get a lot of public support to understand what it is, and it isn't just leisure reading that you can go to the library, because many are in solitary. The libraries aren't the best well supplied, and for us it's young boys and men that don't even know what to ask for, right? That don't even have a meaningful exposure to literature. So we provide it to them. And so that's what we're trying to say. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's a huge, and it's a sign that we need to get the message out about the power of books and writing. And I'm very grateful to the Atlantic to have this opportunity, because I hear from a lot of funders or other people say, it's nice that you do that books and that writing thing, but it's not like, a job or vocational, and we only have so much money in a prison and everything. And I'm like, no, fundamental. If there is not an internal mind shift change about I am worth something, I can do something, I have another way that comes about through the arts, none of the other programs are going to work. It's my little soapbox speech.
David, Stephen, Tara, James, thank you so much. Thank you.